You think your reaction and Ohio State fans' reaction would be like, all right, or would they be like, throw up?
Win, lose, or draw, he's all ready to go. You wouldn't take Lamar.
Lamar Jackson, I would not want Lamar Jackson to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, no.
I seen something that said Taylor Swift made the Super Bowl in her first year in the NFL. She's goated.
She's the most famous person on the planet. Her whereabouts are always going to be news, and you have to deal with that. Don't know if you caught it, Shazier, but crazy thing happened last Sunday. Jerry Rice became the second all-time leader in postseason receptions. Number one is now Mr. Travis Kelce Swift.
Hey, Dave, you remember in Week 7 when you said Travis Kelce was washed?
I would never say he was washed. I did say he was past his prime, and guess what? Welcome to the club, Travis. Dave Damashek is also past his prime.
From Wondery, I'm Ryan Shazier.
How did I think about it? I don't know that I ever did have a prime. Either way, I'm Dave Damashek.
And this is Gridiron Gut Check.
Welcome to Gridiron Gut Check. Every week, I'm talking ball with Steelers icon, two-time Pro Bowler, Ryan Shazier. 5-0, you ready to give my takes a gut check from a player's POV?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about these title games, the Super Bowl, all of it. With yet another Super Bowl appearance, everyone is now eager to crown Mahomes the GOAT. And if he beats the Niners again in the last game of the year, that argument gets even stronger. But a third ring is far from guaranteed, and if Brock Purdy has a stellar game and leads San Francisco to victory, there's a non-zero chance that he never wins another ring. I'm not saying I think that's what's gonna happen, but it does beg the question, who has more on the line in this one, Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes?
Me personally, I think that Brock Purdy has more on the line right here because the 49ers have been in this position before. They drafted a quarterback, then they had Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy played well last year, and then they still even try to bring in Tom Brady. So it just lets you know that they're trying to win at all costs over there. And if Brock Purdy can't get away with this win, I think that it's going to be a lot of discussions going on in San Francisco if they want to keep Brock Purdy as their quarterback as not. The thing is, Brock Purdy, he may come second or third in the MVP race. He's done everything that the team needs. He plays great ball. But at this moment, Brock Purdy, he has to be that missing link that San Francisco has been looking for the last few years to help them get over this pedestal. When it comes to Patrick Mahomes, I think his legacy is already cemented. Win, lose, or draw, he's already the GOAT. He has 14 playoff wins already. He's already tied with Peyton Manning, who is considered, he's not the GOAT, but he's the sheriff, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time already in his career. When you think about his numbers versus Tom Brady's numbers, all his numbers are exactly the same or better. The one thing Tom Brady has is those 3 Super Bowls already, but he's already been to more conference championship games. And then his turnover ratio is better, his QBR is better, and I know that they're throwing the ball a lot more now, but even with them throwing the ball a lot more, his QBR is still better. So when you think about how he's playing ball, and then when he gets into those moments, he's like Tiger Woods. He's like Jesus, because you don't know if he's going to do it, but when you call on him, he comes right on time. I know my parents always used to tell me, sometimes God, you pray to him and you might want him. He might not come when you want him, but he comes right on time. And that's exactly how Patrick Mahomes always performs in the playoffs, in those big moments. I remember it was a stat that showed that he wins 60 or 65% of the games when he's losing by more than 10 points. That doesn't make any sense. So I think that the person that's fighting for their job, not fighting for their job, but who has something to prove is Brock Purdy.
I'm glad we could have a nice, reasonable discussion here, not get out of bounds and hyperbolic and everything. I mostly agree with you, but I do think that we're assuming that time stops immediately after that Super Bowl is concluded. And of course, time will roll on. And if at the age of 28, this is the last we ever see Patrick Mahomes playing in humongous spots. I think 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, remember that discussion about how 15 was comparable to Brady? Brady did have the entire 30s and well into his 40s level success. So I think that Mahomes will have to do that to keep up in the, not one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. We're talking about the number one in the history of people. So that's what he's chasing. It's him versus one other cat now. He's already outstripped Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, and everybody else. So that's heady stuff.
Based off of what he's shown right now, and we're going based off of what he's shown. I understand Tom Brady, he's the most accolade player to ever play. When you think about everything that he's done for the game, all the records that he's broke, all the Super Bowls he's won, but when you're talking about who would you rather have in that moment to win that game, who is a bigger player in those moments, he would be the chosen quarterback that everybody would choose in those moments. Unless you play with Tom Brady.
I think you assume a great deal, right? I think there would be plenty of people that would take Tom Brady if you gave him that equation, and I think there's still some people who would take Joe Montana over both those guys. I mean, to some degree, we are going to support the guy who is the quarterback supreme of our respective generation. So, okay, that's fine. Where the Niners are concerned, I'm getting a lot of pushback from people for having that thought that, if Brock Purdy had not pulled through in the title game against the Lions, I think that that Shanny and Lynch might be looking for his replacement. And shame the devil if he falls on his face. I mean, has a train wreck of a game against the Chiefs here. I do not think it would be insane that Shanny, to hear that Shanny and Lynch are maybe looking to upgrade at the position. Reminder for the people that are very cross with me for saying this, those two guys also moved on from Jimmy Garoppolo after he took him to the Super Bowl, and the year after that took him to the title game. They moved on from him, so why would they not move on from Brock Purdy? It's the same standard that's being applied here, and not that it exactly matters. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan weren't a part of the San Francisco 49ers, but if any franchise has given you the evidence that they're willing to move on from a quarterback, even one who's successful, this is the team that traded Joe Montana. By the way, within this millennium, they also had Alex Smith get them to the title game. Kyle Williams, the punt returner, fumbled twice against the Giants. They went into next year with Alex Smith still as their starter. Halfway through the year, things are going great. I think we could do a little better. Put Colin Kaepernick in there. If there's a team in the NFL that would be willing to move on from a successful quarterback, it is San Francisco. So it's not crazy. I do think this one is more important to the career as a starter, high-end starter and all that of Brock Purdy. That's my opinion on that. How say you, Shazier?
Man, to me, it's just really difficult because it was one moment Brock Purdy was in a conversation of winning the MVP. Then now he missed the cut of being an All-Pro. Now we're saying if they don't win the championship, he's the guy that's going to be the first one out. This offense has not performed this well with any other quarterback other than Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan does not play for the 49ers. The last time that Kyle Shanahan had a quarterback that performed the way that Brock Purdy's performing right now, he hasn't had one since Matt Ryan, and he won an MVP, and they lost in the Super Bowl. So to me, the only reason I would see them thinking about moving on from Brock Purdy is because they understand that the roster that they have built. So if we bring in another quarterback, a younger guy, a guy that we don't have to pay as much, then that might be, we can keep this going for a longer period of time. But if they keep Brock Purdy, they understand we're going to have to pay him, and then we're going to blow all this up. And we have to understand, if we blow all this up for the next 15 years, is Brock Purdy our guy? So that's the conversation that if they lose this game, that's the conversation I think that they're going to have. But if Brock Purdy wins this game, just know he's going to get paid. This team's going to get blown up. And I don't see Brock Purdy being one of those guys that's going to lead them to multiple championships once this team is blown up. He might do it while this team is how it is now, but if you talk about this team in 7 years from now, when there's no Trent Williams, when there's no Christian McCaffrey, when there's no Brandon Ayuk, when there's no George Kittles, when there's no Fred Warner still might be there. I don't know. 7 years, I doubt it. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, when you don't have all those all-pros around you all the time, it makes it a lot more difficult to win football games. And I think they're going to really consider that if they lose. Do we think we need to go get a younger guy and keep on moving? Because people would trade a lot for Brock Purdy right now. People would do a lot for Brock Purdy. So, like you said, this is a franchise that's trying to win now, and they don't care what they need to do to win now. And We're going to see.
All right, let's move on to the other side of that NFC title game equation, the sad side of it, the Detroit Lions. And while they did look explosive in the first half over there in Santa Clara, it did appear they were not just going to win, but they were going to blow out San Francisco. The Ravens offense struggled all day long. Lamar did everything he could during the regular season to make his case for a second MVP, and I think he's going to get it. But after all the talk about how much Todd Monken had done to revamp that offense, they still only scored 10 points, and Lamar threw a costly pick into triple coverage. The Chiefs were the more disciplined team, bottom line. I feel like we keep asking the same question as the Chiefs have now bested. Tua, Josh Allen, MVP Lamar. What will it take for one of these superhero QBs to beat Mahomes when it matters most?
To me, I think what it's going to take for Allen and Lamar to beat Mahomes, I don't see them winning a ring, and because the way that I see that this is happening, it's kind of going to be like the Tom Brady effect. Tom Brady was there for 20 years, and somebody might slide in, they might have a great defense one year, and then boom, they get their one Super Bowl. But I think as long as Lamar Jackson is controlling the AFC, he's shown that he's able to do it with lesser receivers. Obviously, he has Travis Kelce, but in free agency, they'll be able to pick up another big-time tight end or another big-time receiver because he's the GOAT. So people are going to want to play with him. So I think as long as they continue to build out this roster the way they're building it, the only way I see Lamar, Josh Allen being able to beat Patrick Mahomes is if one year they have an off year, the Chiefs have an off year, like the Patriots will have every few years, and then they get to actually win their championship. But when it comes to head-to-head matchups, I don't really see them winning a head-to-head matchup. I see more of their defense making plays and causing Mahomes to make a mistake. But I don't see anybody outplaying him and when it comes to who's going to be the better quarterback in that game.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't expect Patrick Mahomes to go to the Super Bowl every single year between now and the time he retires. But what you're getting at is that he probably should be favored to do that pretty much every year until I don't know when. People are trying to throw dirt on these Chiefs this season. So, I think everybody's learned their lesson with that one. And reminder, Patrick Mahomes is Thanos. Josh Allen is super powered. So is Joe Burrow and so is Lamar Jackson. They just aren't as almighty as Thanos is. And he is the gatekeeper to the Super Bowl on the AFC side of things. It really is, as I have said for now decades, the one Lombardi in the QB league conundrum. They only give out that one Lombardi. So declarations that this young man has nothing to hang his head about, he's going to be back in this spot, and this is the start of a wonderful rivalry for both quarterbacks and both teams, whether you're talking about Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson. People have said that about Justin Herbert too, on down the line, Trevor Lawrence. It still is Mahomes who keeps winning the gigantic percentage of those games. But even before you get into the Mahomes, if they were all equal, percentages say that all those guys are going to get their shot, are going to have a special year where they take a run at winning that Lombardi. Their careers overlap. Again, they only give out one Lombardi at the end of the year. Someone's going to get left with 0 Lombardis. Then, when you start factoring in guys like Mahomes taking an outsized percentage of those Lombardis, there aren't a lot left over. By the way, keep in mind that once every decade or thereabouts, Joe Flacco's going to sneak through and steal one, or Brad Johnson's going to do it, or Trent Dilfer. That's one fewer Lombardi available to Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and the rest of that crew. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult, but if it makes you feel any better, AFC teams not in Kansas City, the same was true for Brett Favre having to go through Troy Aikman and Steve Young. The same was true for Snake Stabler having to go through Terry Bradshaw and the Miami Dolphins and all the rest of it. This is the way it goes. It's hard to get to a Super Bowl and to win it. Don't hang your head about that. And speaking of which, maybe you should follow the lead of Dan Campbell. After the Lions loss, he said, like we say, I mean, they really took it. That is, to me, one of the 5 or 6 most painful losses that I've seen in the Super Bowl era. I had no rooting interest in the game. Spiritually, I could get behind Motor City and their long-suffering fans in Honolulu Blue. But Campbell went to the mic and kind of told the truth, whether it was inconvenient or otherwise. He said this might have been our only shot. Now, as great as Dan Campbell is on the mic, this year's Lions squad wouldn't have gotten as far as they did without, I don't know if he counts as a secret weapon. Dan Campbell is the vibes guy, if you will. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, is the X's and O's guy that really made that offense take off with Jared Goff. He was a hothead coaching candidate, and everybody assumed, I certainly did, that he was on his way out to take a head coaching gig somewhere else. But he just announced this week he's sticking with Detroit in 2024 as their OC. What do you think, 5-0? Will the Lions reload? Will they get back to the place where they just were, deep in the playoffs, or will new obstacles reveal themselves, like Dan Campbell kind of hinted at? The Packers. I think he's talking about the Bears, maybe. I think he's looking at the Vikings, maybe with Kirk Cousins back in the fold. How say you?
See, when you look at that team has a lot of pieces coming back. Jared Goff played really well. Ben Johnson's a great coordinator. To me, the fact that Ben Johnson is staying, and I think Glenn is staying as well, the D coordinator, the fact that they're keeping their core together, I think that's going to allow them another run in this playoff. And then also, if I was Ben Johnson, I would stay too, because the coaching vacancies that's available now, I don't want to touch those with a 10-foot pole. So the reason, basically, I understand what he's doing, but I think that the Lions, when it comes to building up that team, the way that they play, that the way that Ben Johnson created offense, and just understanding the confidence and I know you said Dan Campbell's the vibe guy, but I felt that his confidence and the way that he pushed his players every day made them want to play harder, made them feel like they believed in each other, believed in him. And Ben Johnson did that to Jared Goff. And then you've seen how this team became a better team. So I think that the Lions were going to be a force to reckon with next year. They're going to have to worry about Green Bay Packers, and they're going to have to worry about the Bears. Minnesota, I don't know what's the plan with Minnesota, but I know that Green Bay, they're going to have to worry about. So the Lions and Green Bay is going to be a nice little rivalry like they've been having for the last few years. But I think that with every piece coming back, as long as they don't have any injuries, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the NFC Championship again.
I mean, I hear you. I wouldn't be stunned if they were. Again, though, as a reminder, it's very difficult to get back to that place 2 years in a row. So don't hold your breath, Lions fans, but do know, I agree with the majority of people out there saying that the Detroit Lions are the new America's team. I think they're kind of 1/4 of it. As I think about it, I think the optimal Final Four, if you look at how Football America reacted to the Detroit Lions making a playoff run, everybody loves underdog stories, which is kind of why it's tough to make sense of Brock Purdy. The Niners are this juggernaut franchise and team, but their guy's this little cutesy fella who looks like he's 11 years old and he's Mr. Irrelevant. But we set them aside because they're one of the halves, the Niners. The ultimate Final Four would be the Detroit Lions against the Minnesota Vikings on one side and the Cleveland Browns against who would be the best team over there? The Jets, maybe? All the have-nots, all the sad teams, the Buffalo Bills. Let's go with them. If you had a Bills versus Detroit Super Bowl, who would win? America. That's who, because everybody would get behind either underdog and be over the moon about it. Quick one for you, Shazier, because the people do need to know what you're talking about here when Black and Gold makes a big move here, and I would count this one as a big one for all the hand-wringing about the former offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, being shown the door during the season. The Steelers now have found his permanent replacement in Arthur Smith, late of the Atlanta Falcons. How say you to this?
To be honest with you, I think this is actually a pretty good hire. And what I mean by it's a good hire, there's some things that Arthur Smith did when he was at Atlanta Falcons. I wasn't a big fan of his play calling on certain things. I felt like he didn't use Bijan Robinson enough, but I understand that he was trying to use a committee of backs. I don't feel like he used Kyle Pitts. I don't feel like he was using
Drake
Kyle
London.
Pitts. Yeah. I don't feel like he was using his receivers enough. But when it came to running the ball and having a creative offense, I thought he did a good job, especially when he was in Tennessee. He made Ryan Tannehill game a lot better. If he could do that to Kenny Pickett or whoever's the quarterback for the Steelers, I think that's going to be great. Me and Dave talked about this earlier. The two top teams in the NFL, they both were running teams. I know everybody wants us to just throw the ball over the yard, but if our best player on our team on offense is George Pickens, obviously. But when it comes to the running game, is the next two are Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. So we need to be able to mix the game up, allow them to have multiple carries in multiple different ways, and then find ways to get George Pickens the ball. I think Arthur Smith can do that. And if he could do that and give us 26 a game, 27 a game, I think that's going to be a great situation for the Steelers in the defense that they normally have every year.
Watch them load up. You talk about who their best player is in 2023 on offense. Don't be surprised if they emerge with Broderick Jones as their best offensive player by next season. That's a difference maker in the offensive line. It's not as much fun. I get it. We like to talk about the fantasy relevant guys, but I think they're going to do exactly what the Tennessee Titans did about 5 years ago, which is load up more and more and more on that offensive line. They're in the process of doing it. The problem with making the strength of your team the offensive line is that it requires a real commitment. Obviously, there are 5 of those guys out there at any given time versus one tight end, one quarterback. And so you really have to, it's a multi-year plot that is underway here. I think the Steelers will continue to lean in that way. And as far as that goes, when you don't have the aforementioned Patrick Mahomes or one of those very few guys who's a superhero level quarterback, play action, run the ball, this is the way to succeed. And like Shazier just said there, the 2 number 1 seeds were 1 and 3 in terms of run over pass percentage in 2023. So the idea that the only way to win in the NFL is slinging the ball all over the place is silliness. When the Falcons hired Raheem Morris and the Panthers hired Dave Canales last week, they did the same surprising thing other teams with head coaching vacancies this offseason have done. They didn't hire the alleged GOAT, Bill Belichick. And it looks like the Commanders and Seahawks are going to do the same thing. Here's what I think. At this point, Belichick is just chasing the career win record, and very few teams want to deal with someone who might be cranky and controlling, and he does want control of personnel and all of that, even if it is going to get you some wins. As a fan, though, my biggest concern is the mercenary effect. I submit that if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, did you really love that Super Bowl that Tom Brady came and got for you? The mercenary from Foxborough, I mean, he wanted to burnish his legacy. He used you. You had a really good collection of skill guys and an offensive line and a clear path on the NFC side. He's a smart guy. He jumped over there. He wanted to own the Dolphins. He wanted to be their quarterback, but he took you as 1A and he won you a Super Bowl. Feel good, Tampa? I doubt it. I doubt it feels as special as most teams who win a Lombardi. Same thing at play here. Bill Belichick may or may not come in and succeed for your team. How special is that going to feel? The Patriots legend? The last little chapter he throws in at the back end there. Oh yeah, he also did well with my team too. No, thank you. How say you, Shazier?
Shek, I think you're absolutely ridiculous right now. Most fans, if Bill Belichick came in, obviously he's an older guy, the way he's trying to change things up, he's a mercenary. You just don't want a mercenary in there. But if you have somebody that's trying to win a Super Bowl, if he just comes and wins a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, with the Commanders, with the Atlanta Falcons, or whoever that is going to hire him, I think all those fans will be completely A-okay if he wins a championship. Because the thing is that a lot of people fail to realize you have 6 championships, Dave. Well, you don't have it. The city of Pittsburgh has 6 championships.
No, I have 6 Lombardis, to be exact. I have 6 Lombardis. I have 5 Stanley Cups. You understand? Please, my ring count is well past what you figure. Not single digits, friend.
No, you're right. You have all those rings. But when you think about it, if somebody comes in and allows you to win a championship and then be like, hey, I'm rolling off into the sunset, I think every fan will be completely okay with that. That guy is still going to be able to get food in the city. They're probably going to name stuff after him because at the end of the day, he's done something that we have not been able to do in the last 15 years. It's some teams, they have never been able to do it. So I know that you're mad that he's just getting a win count, but if his win count causes them to win a Super Bowl, I think that the fans will be okay with it and won't have a problem. And now if he's just getting wins and they're not winning, and he just gets enough wins and he's like, I'm out, then that's when you'll have a problem. But I think everybody in Tampa, I actually know people that are Tampa Bay fans, and they're like, yeah, man, I still love Tom Brady to this day, man. I thank him so much for helping us win the championship.
All right. I mean, I guess it's a different standard, and I guess if you're walking out in the desert without seeing your team win titles, maybe you get more desperate and willing to trade some dignity. As you say, I sit in the seat of luxury. My teams have won a lot, not the Pittsburgh Pirates, but otherwise, I've been pretty lucky in that regard. But listen, when Brett Favre left the Packers, and he took that little detour for a year in New York, and then came to the Minnesota Vikings, I'd be sick if I were a Packers fan that happened. I'd be more disgusted by if I were a Vikings fan. Wait. The difference maker for our team is the guy who tortured us for the last decade and a half? No, thank you. I mean, my dignity is worth more.
You wouldn't take Lamar?
Lamar Jackson, I would not want Lamar Jackson to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. No. There is something to the hypothetical you're throwing out is a little bit different. I wouldn't want Ray Lewis being the difference maker on a Steelers team winning a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson has not gotten to the peak of the mountain with Baltimore, so it would be funny and would twist the knife a little bit deeper into Ravens fans if he did do it with the Steelers. That's a different circumstance, though. I'm talking about I wouldn't want Roger Staubach to be the Steelers quarterback, although even that's not so great because the Steelers owned Roger Staubach. You get the upshot of what I'm getting at here. I think you're being a little weird. Would you want Jim Harbaugh to come coach Ohio State to a national championship? How would that strike you?
I feel like at first it's going to be weird. It'll be very weird. But then after a while, it's like, hey, if we're winning championships.
No, think about one. Ryan Day. Wait, Ryan Day's leaving? He's going where, to UCLA? I can't believe it. What are they going to do? Wait, Jim Harbaugh wants the job? That's weird. Can you believe this? College football America? Jim Harbaugh is leaving Ann Arbor. He's now ditching the Chargers. He loves college too much. He's going to Columbus, Ohio to coach the Buckeyes. You think your reaction and Ohio State fans' reaction would be like, all right? Or would they be like, throw up?
You'd be like, at first you'd be like, oh my gosh. But then you think about it realistically and say, we're about to win a championship. You know, so obviously we don't want Ryan Day to leave, but we love Ryan Day. But Ohio State wants whoever's going to help them win championships.
Well, all right. Enjoy it. I hope that happens now, because I think that would be fun to watch the Big Ten or whatever it is now, the Big Teen.
I think Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes had some type of dynamic like that.
Yeah, I mean, of course. You listen.
No, I'm saying like one of them was working at the other school. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I think Bo, his roots are Miami of Ohio. Listen, it's imperfect. The Emperor Chaz Noel, the architect of the great Steelers teams of the 70s, is an Ohio native who played for the Cleveland Browns. There's a different standard, though, when you're achieving for another franchise and your resume includes glory for another NFL team and then coming over at the tail end of your career and throw another cherry on top and expecting a tenured fan base to be excited. If I were a Washington football fan, I would not want Bill Belichick to be my head coach. I would say we need to forge our own identity. We have enough tradition in our building. Joe Gibbs delivered us 3 Lombardis. We are not so desperate that we need to go get Bill Belichick right now to solve whatever ails us.
So if Patrick Mahomes came to the Steelers and won a Super Bowl, you don't think you'll be happy at that Super Bowl?
No. I mean, I won't be mad, but I would kind of shrug and say disappointing that they had to go mercenary to try and get this done, that they were so desperate to do something that this is the path they took. It's inorganic. Let's put it that way. I don't care for it. You know what? Enough of this. Let's get to some quick hitters. It's time to roll out the Nickel Package. 5 questions, 5 quick answers, 5-0. I said quick. Are you all set?
Yes, sir.
We had a Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes QB matchup on one side. On the other side, Brock Purdy versus Jared Goff. Why is there such a disparity between the AFC and NFC at the top, at the most important position in all of sports?
Because at the end of the day, when you think about these two different conferences, the AFC just been able to draft really good quarterbacks in the first round. When you think about the NFC, a lot of the quarterbacks they drafted in the first round, they have not panned out, but they've also had other people in other areas of the position the other areas of the round to be able to stand out. But to me, I'm starting to look at this, and I'm thinking the NFC seems like they like to build through the team a little bit more, while the AFC likes to build through the quarterback a little bit more. And that could be the reason why the quarterbacks normally aren't as good.
I think there is something to keeping up with the Joneses and all that. And when you see what your prime adversaries have, you feel like, well, we better get that or we can't compete. And so maybe there's something to that. Producer Hank floated an interesting hypothesis as well, that because there are such heavyweights and have been for the last decade or so on the AFC side of things, Mahomes and Brady chief among them, that the bad teams are a little bit worse by record because they continually have to play those heavyweight teams, and that knocks them down just enough in draft position, or knocks them up, I should say, in draft position, that they have dibs on the best available college quarterback, and maybe that explains that. Also, the seminal event of the last decade in quarterback drafting, I guess you could say, was it kind of swings things, is the Bears having the second overall and using it on Mitchell Trubisky instead of on Patrick Mahomes or even Deshaun Watson in that case. Speaking of Mahomes, he's once again outlasted all those other superhero QBs. So my question is, which of these guys will win a Super Bowl first? Like I say, Mahomes ain't going to win all of them, or maybe he is. But let's have fun and pretend that maybe he won't. Who's going to win it first? Josh Allen, Lamar, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, or Caleb Williams? How say you, 5-0? So
you're going to think I'm very biased right here, but we already seen what Josh Allen can do. We've seen what Lamar can do. Jordan Love is this is his first true year, and CJ is his first true year. But to me, CJ reminds me much of Patrick Mahomes when he was a rookie. I mean, when he was in his second year. Everybody was like, man, he did so well. How can he get better? So to me, I'm going to take CJ in this situation because he did so well his rookie year. And for him, just to see how he was able to go that far with a team that nobody projected to go anywhere close to that. And to have the number one seed tied at halftime before, losing by 21. I just think that CJ and D'Amico Ryans are going to figure things out, and he's going to actually get more weapons around him, because right now he doesn't even have the weapons around him that he needs. When you think about Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, they all have the weapons that they need. Then it's going to be hard for me to say Caleb Williams, because I don't know where he's going. I don't know what the situation is going to look like. And I'm not going to just go off of the cuff. Well, spoiler alert, Caleb Williams is going to be a Bear. Justin Fields is going to be somewhere else after the Bears trade him away to try and set Caleb Williams up for as much success as possible. I'm with you on Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Year 7 and beyond, your odds of getting to a Super Bowl go down significantly. Jordan Love has been around for a minute. Yes, this is the first exposure he's had to the playoffs, but he's been in the league for a minute, which means that first big contract is coming sooner rather than later. I don't think you're crazy to go with CJ Stroud here. The one thing I would say is, obviously, I said it before, about every good QB has to beat other good QBs to get anywhere in the postseason, but do look out for that AFC South. It's been a little bit of a punchline the last couple of years, along with the NFC South. I think the AFC side is going to be a lot better in 2024, with the Jags are not going to fall off a cliff. Maybe they're a little disappointing. I think the Titans are intriguing as they reboot, but beware the, who am I forgetting there? Oh, the Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson. Steichen and company looked real good with Gardner Minshew for the vast majority of that season. Once they get that cat Richardson back in there, and assuming he stays healthy, the Colts are going to be real good too. So the path is going to be tougher for Stroud in 2024. Speaking of Stroud, he's the betting favorite to win Rookie of the Year. He's obviously an OSU guy. In 2022, another OSU alum, Garrett Wilson, won. In 2020, Chase Young won. In 19, Nick Bosa won. In 17, Marshawn Lattimore won. 2016, Joey Bosa, Shazier. In 2014, you were the first rookie linebacker to be a starter in Pittsburgh since 2001. What is it about this program that prepares guys to make their jump? And I know that there are other programs out there do it, but I'm talking about from day one. I think the one thing about Ohio State that really helps us out is like an Alabama, like a Georgia, like a Clemson, is that everybody that you're going against is a high level guy, a guy that's good enough to go into the NFL. So when you're practicing against those guys, it helps out. The one thing that I like about Ohio State and the Big Ten is that they play more pro style ball, while a lot of other schools play more college style ball when they're spreading everybody out and trying to take advantage of like numbers and mismatch. While Ohio State, obviously Ryan Day, he does a great job of play calling, but he takes advantage of his players and allow them to beat them based off of technique and skill. And Ohio State does a really good job of hiring really good coaches to allow them to teach the guys and develop them. So to me, I think it's a combination of, if you think about receivers, Brian Hartline has developed some really good receivers. Chris Olave, he's Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He has Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, you can go on for days. So you have to really think about it when it comes to the coaching that they're putting out there to help the guys. But then when they're going against people, the same schemes that they're running in college is exactly the same type of schemes that they're running in the NFL.
Yeah, there are 4 or 5 football factories out there that just keep feeding pro football. Ohio State is obviously one of them, and I think it gets to a point of being, as I kind of say, like a machine that the players want to jump into. You don't have to sell it at some point. It's like, hey, you're a wideout and you want to play in the NFL? Look at our track record the last 15 years. That kind of makes the case for you there. And now with CJ Stroud looking good at QB, if they wash off the Ohio State QB stink, boy, they're really cooking with gas there. Now, there are many people claiming they're not going to watch this Super Bowl because they have feelings about Travis Kelce's endorsements. Now, you may have heard Travis Kelce has been dating somebody named Taylor Swift, and she is encouraging people to get out to vote. And the Niners, they used to have Colin Kaepernick, who you may have heard, he used to kneel down. Are we looking at an actual drop in viewership this year, or is it a bunch of noise from people who are going to tune in on Super Sunday like the rest of the world is?
I think it's a bunch of noise. And the reason I say it's a bunch of noise is because the people that are trying to convince people not to watch this game, they have a nice following, but I don't think their following is as big as Taylor Swift's. And Taylor Swift is going to probably have more people watching this game and caring about this game just because they might get to see a video of her celebrating or a picture of her being sad than actually, you know, all these other people that have their own agendas because of politics. Football is not supposed to be about politics. It's supposed to be about the game and entertainment. And you know who's the biggest entertainer in the world right now? Taylor Swift. And the biggest entertainment in the world when it comes to American sports is football. So you got 2 of them things together. Honestly, it might be a drop in people that think more political, but it's going to be a rise in individuals that care about entertainment and what that can provide. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably going to be the most watched Super Bowl ever.
I'll say this. If it would have been the Lions, then you would have had that locked up. The GOAT versus the upstart Detroit Lions would have been guaranteed to be one of the 2 or 3 most watched Super Bowls ever. Yeah, of course, people are going to watch, and you're right. People are trying to sway a portion of America not to watch this game. But the if nothing else happens, even if that's just a bunch of noise, and people say, like, obviously, I'm still going to watch the Super Bowl. Taylor Swift fans, producer Tasha told us after Sunday night, a lot of her friends were crying or sending out images of Swifties crying because they were so happy for Taylor Swift. These are people who didn't typically watch a lot of postseason level football, but now are watching because of Taylor Swift. Her sway is greater than the combined sway of the people that are trying to convince this is bad, football's no good anymore. Her sway will prove greater, and I don't think the ratings are going to get dinged here. That's my opinion. I'm pretty sure I'm
Think
right
about this. The same people that you're just talking about that's a huge fan of her are the same people that's going to have a Super Bowl party or watch the Super Bowl with their friends, and they don't even watch football. So think about all the individuals that's about to be watching the Super Bowl because of somebody that's not even in the game. I seen something that said Taylor Swift made the Super Bowl in her first year in the NFL. She's goated. It's like, think about that. It's ridiculous.
It's funny. And, the bottom line is these people who want to control the news or control society or whatever, like Taylor Swift is the most famous person, not number one entertainer, Shazier. Let me punch that up a little bit. She's the most famous person on the planet. Her whereabouts are always going to be news, and you have to deal with that. I don't know what else to say to you. Obviously, they're going to cut away to her to get her reaction when she is in a public space watching something happen. That's what happens to the most famous person in the world. Don't know what we're even talking about here. It's gotten very weird, everybody. Either way, that's it for this episode of Gridiron Gut Check.
So make sure to follow, rate, and review the show on wherever you're listening. Check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel, and make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.